Hello, everyone. I'm Boater.
I'm Dave Mann.
And Dave, do you remember last week on the Week on Wednesday we were, actually,
good?
let's call him in, and then I do kind of want to follow up with you on something. So we have a guest host that we're trying to dial in right now, and of course we get these things done at the last second. So Anthony, are you there?
Hey, I am.
Awesome.
I'm here, guys. Can you hear me?
Yes,
We
sir,
got
loud
you
and clear.
just fine. I am so excited to get into this. Anthony, if you haven't watched before, I usually start off with some sort of joke or gag. And so that usually starts off like this. Hey, Dave.
Hey, Boater.
Do you remember last week, on the Week on Wednesday, we were playing Among Us? Do you remember, there was a song that we were kind of riffing on. Do you remember what it was?
I do a lot of singing just in my free time, so to pick one particular song, I could not. But do you...
Dave, well, on the weekend Wednesday we were singing out in style,
Oh,
and I
God.
thought to bring it back, well, it would surely make you smile. We've got gaming news and guest hosts to amuse us for a while, so let's get started now. Come one and all to the Nerd Glasses podcast.
Really? Two
Come
verses?
one and all to the Nerd Glasses podcast. Come one and all to the Nerd Glasses podcast on Insane Games TV. Shut up.
Bravo, Boater, bravo!
It's a verse and then a refrain, David. So yay! Hey everyone, welcome to Nerd Glasses. I'm Boater.
I'm Dave Mann,
And with us, joining us today, is Anthony.
founding partner, creator of, and a friend of gamers, and a creator of a fantastic game. If you don't just take my word, because I have a really big mouth and I enjoy the game. But all the way from Guildhouse Games, how are you today?
I'm good. Yeah. I'm so sorry that took so long.
Hey, if I don't give Boater a headache by doing technology things, someone has to. So I'm glad that this week I managed to get all my stuff in order, and I was just sitting here going, Boater, look at this thing that I have.
Yeah, and meanwhile, of course, your guest host came in with, instead of opening with a bad joke, Boater opens with a musical number.
Can you still hear me? It looks like I'm frozen.
No, we can hear you. We can hear you just fine.
Unfortunately, sometimes Skype does throw a fit, but you are audible.
Yep. If you want, what you can do on your end is, without hanging up, you can turn off video and then turn it back on again. But that is totally up to you. So
Yep.
yay,
Let's see
that's
if
working.
That works. All right. Cool.
That's working, and I like that you can see
Technology.
yourself in Skype because your camera is right behind our broadcasting camera. So we've got some fun stuff going on today.
Thank you very much, Vladdy, for the subscription. Vladdy cheering out for the guest host. I know, I gotta say, it's really funny. We haven't even really gotten the display for the Varia cards out yet. And just from the couple of Discord posts that I've done and talking to people about how excited I was, and I mean, I literally, if you've watched Emperor's New Groove, that scene of Kronk with the sack skipping through the countryside, that was me with the Varia cards coming into the mall, and people were like, Dave, what do you have? Nothing! As I discreetly walked across the walls and So, we wanted to, if it's okay, we'll be taking questions from people in chat, and we wanted to do a couple segments that we usually do, and we were wondering if you would be okay chatting some gaming stories and things with us as well.
Oh, absolutely.
Awesome.
Cool.
So, Boater, I know we usually start off with games that are coming out this week and things like that, but it's Christmas week. All of the games that are coming out in the next 7 days are, there aren't. So, video game releases, kind of monotheistic, not gonna lie.
Yeah.
But at the same point, shopping comes, shopping ebbs, shopping flows. It's return season almost, folks, so be ready.
Yeah. And we'll get to return season already when we talk about Cyberpunk later on. But another one of our common features is who was banned by Twitch this week. And there's a few that are all worth kind of referencing each other. The Valorant pro streamer, actually pro player Tehuhu, and I probably mispronounced her. I apologize. A Brazilian streamer plays for the Valorant team INTZ. She got an indefinite ban for featuring a minor. Now, again, the usual disclaimer is that Twitch doesn't actually say why they ban anyone, but she went to get food, and her 3-year-old wandered into the room and, quote, interacted with chat. I don't know exactly to what extent, but an unaccompanied minor in a stream, indefinite ban.
It is in the black and white of Twitch that
Yep.
you are not allowed to have minors on your streams unaccompanied by an adult.
Yep.
So for those of you thinking about that 6-year-old that was playing Warzone, on frame, it was child and adult sitting right there,
Absolutely.
making sure.
Yeah.
But yeah, unaccompanied minors on Twitch, that's a big old no-no.
Yeah. You compare this to Just a Minx, who was also banned this week. She got 7 days for profanity, which was not meant in an insulting manner, but still, like for saying certain words. I don't know the exact phrases that were said, but basically saying things that are against the terms of service, no matter the intent. 7 days.
Everyone in chat, just discreetly write what words you think were said.
We won't repeat those back. Most of the time, we try to repeat back what chat says. That one, we're not gonna.
We'll make Anthony read. No, I'm kidding.
Yeah, there we go. I'll mute myself, and then they can guess based on my lips.
Yeah.
Yes!
And then Just a Minx with her ban, she tweeted and was like, "Well, what the hell is this?" Because Misbehavin' got a 3-day ban. And what Misbehavin' did was stream to Twitch when she probably meant to stream to OnlyFans.
Ooh, 2 very different streaming services.
Yeah. The quote in Just a Minx's tweet was, quote, "showing her whole pussy."
Really?
Yeah.
Really?
So I didn't go and try to look up the footage. It's off of Twitch now at this point, and I was at work, so I wasn't going to try to dig for that. But
You weren't going to use work Wi-Fi to look up moderately.
Yeah. So it's the kind of thing that, like, oh, she accidentally went to OnlyFans, or was it accidental in quotes to promote her OnlyFans? Either way, it was a 3-day ban for lewd imagery. And then, meanwhile, the Valorant streamer indefinitely banned because her daughter wandered into the room while she was grabbing pizza or something.
It is unfortunate.
Or trying to direct the Uber Eats driver to where she lives. I don't know.
You gotta hate when that happens too, but like, it is unfortunate that this event is coming right off of that recent PR release from Nintendo, Microsoft, and Sony joint venturing for the first time in, and I looked this up, since the early 2000s on a PR thing, to say, hey, we're going to protect kids on our content and things like that. And like, ooh, this is like almost exactly what they were talking about.
Yeah.
But
Right.
not necessarily in the way that they were meaning the letter of the law.
Intent is a thing that, should be considered when it comes to these kinds of things. And I do understand that it should have been, maybe a few days ban, but the indefinite, which is not permanent, but it is, we are not telling you when we're going to reinstate you.
Yeah.
So that's
At the same time, you have to wonder if maybe they're trying to make an example, like, so that, because the thing is, it's like, it's kids. Like, you have to,
no,
and it's the internet. Like, those are two things that maybe, shouldn't mix.
Yeah.
in
Meanwhile,
a lot of ways. So I feel like if any good can come from it, it's that other streamers take that really seriously, and they
agreed.
make sure that you don't have unaccompanied minors on the internet.
Yeah.
Like that's important.
That also lends to the idea of the people that are getting banned by Twitch that are getting this media have a lot of are making a living almost off of Twitch, which is why these bans are so critical.
Yes.
Interesting though that here on Twitch, I'll do this. If Boder and I really need to step away for a second, we'll just do this. And oh my goodness, we're back and nobody saw what we were doing.
Her daughter wandered onto the stream while she was out of the room, so that is unaccompanied, more like rigor mortis.
I will say it's kind of funny that you should mention that story. That yesterday was getting ready for the stream and everything. I'm sitting back here backstage and playing my ukulele, and I look over and there's just a kid standing back here.
Oh yeah, like back in
like
here.
right 15 feet in front of us currently in studio. And I was like, "Hi, bud." Like I didn't have my mask on, like so I like put the mask on. I'm like, "What are you doing here?" He's like, "My mom said I could come into the game store." And I was like, "Okay, well, did you see the do not enter signs by that one entrance?" Like,
Yeah.
He's like, "Oh yeah, I totally did."
Yeah.
I choose not to understand some of these words.
The amount of times that kids are just left unaccompanied somewhere in the mall, and like the age of some of the kids that are just left unaccompanied in the mall blows my mind.
As I've told people who leave their kids in this store, I also work in public education. If you want to pay me what would boil down to my hourly wage for child rearing, I would gladly pump your kid full of caffeine and sugar and things like that and then give them right back to you. But
Yeah, we used to sell Monster Energy here, and so I just made like
oh my god.
I just made like a satirical sign that I put like off to the side somewhere that said, "Unattended children will be fed Monster Energy and returned to their parents."
Can you imagine just one of the kids is like standing at one of the... We used to carry it in store, but like, "Hey, where are your parents?" "They said I have to wait here till my mom and dad come back." "Have at, kid."
I assume that much like in video games, a video game store, you go towards the do not enter signs.
More like rigor mortis, you would normally be right. And
We need to put up invisible walls, David.
the thing that I liked about what the kid did was, again, I work with children all the time, so I, of course, was immediately prepared. There are many people, though, that don't have or work around kids and just freeze up when there are small peoples around, like cats or dogs that don't like to be social, or people. But
I am a dog that doesn't like to be social.
I will say, and I'll give that kid some credit
For standing
Ma-
and not going and
Maxwell,
touching everything.
You asked a lot of good questions, so you
Good,
got to
cool.
stand back here longer than anybody else.
You need to put up cliffs that just drop you off where you jumped when you go over them. So the kid walks in there and he gets a little countdown in his vision, and then when it hits 10, he pops back to the store.
Oh, God.
Saying, "You're leaving the mission area!"
Man, once things are more safe for people to gather here at Insane Games, we have so many plans for events, for games,
We have so many
for things
plans
like that.
for public to be able to use this space in a supervised manner.
Not also withstanding the fact that we are definitely going to host a Varia tournament where X amount of, and I'm going to shout at least once, X amount of people enter, X amount of people leave.
Good
Yeah,
job using the
and
same
honestly,
variable. That's optimistic.
Once you guys are able to do that, let us know, because we would love to support something like that.
Yes! Because I know that there are many decks that have already sold. People are, some of our folks are already getting to the phase where they're like, "What if I take this card out and put that card in?" And I'm like, "Yes, tinkering."
Honestly, that's the part that I'm the most excited about. And when we built the game, we did it in such a way where we wanted to create enough freedom and enough of that kind of modularity, because you know, we come from a background of card games, and you know, I played Magic growing up like my entire life, you know, and that's honestly one of my favorite things about Magic, especially now, is that the card pool is so voluminous and the deck building component is so free.
Yeah.
That you can really kind of do whatever you want. Like, I have friends that have Doctor Who themed decks that, you know, the whole point of the deck is to play multiplayer Magic and basically phase yourself out of the game and kind of let everyone else fight while you're removed from time and just like, you know, crazy stuff. And so we definitely built it with that in mind, so that, you know, one day when the card pool is big enough, like, somebody can say, "You know what, I want to make a deck where I feel exactly like Thor." Like, you can do that. I want to be a Sith Lord. Here you go. Here's a bunch of lightning and, you know, whatever, hatred themed stuff.
I mean, Shadow Assassin does it pretty well.
Yeah. So I think we're putting the cart before the horse. I think we're ready to talk Varia now.
Oh, sorry.
So no, it's totally okay. That's totally okay. The only other topic I had is that Cyberpunk is bombing so bad that everywhere is accepting refunds, even GameStop, even if your game is opened. That's all I had for that. So
Anthony, did you get into Cyberpunk at all? Were you keep up with the
So-
drama about it?
Yeah, I so I'll tell you my Cyberpunk story. It's very short.
Okay.
I saw it. I thought this is so. My brother and I, we both got a PS4 so that we could game together.
Yeah,
right?
Yeah.
I saw it, thought it was really cool, downloaded it with the intent that I was going to play it, and then I was going to tell my brother if I felt like it was worth our time or not. Right? I got like an hour in, and I still hadn't finished kind of like the opening meet your friend quest or whatever that was.
Yeah.
I felt like I was basically watching a movie for like over an hour, which is fine. Like I love God of War and those kind of games, like totally cool. But my point is that I had not encountered any of the bugs or anything that a lot of people were complaining about. I'm a new dad. I have a very young son, so this was like the day it came out, and then I didn't pick it up since, just because that's my normal gaming schedule.
Yeah.
My brother texted me and he's like, "Hey man, did you get a refund for Cyberpunk?" And I was like, "No, why?"
Yeah.
He's like, "Oh, everyone's freaking out. Like, there's bugs and this and that and whatever." And I had no idea, so I just Googled it, saw that Sony was giving refunds, saw that there was like a bunch of bugs.
Yeah.
Immediately issued for one, like, because I don't have time to play a game for 3, 4, 5, 8 hours before I decide like, oh, this is super buggy, I'm just gonna get my money back. Like,
Yeah.
so I kind of like followed the crowd, which I don't normally do, but in this case, it was like all over the news, and I just figured,
I think,
why fight it? I can always get it again later if they improve it, or if they come out with a patch or something like that. So
I think it's one of those things that, like, it's not unique as far as coming out in a worse state and eventually going to get better. It's just that the extent to which it did, it has a ton of minor bugs. As HRH Pistol Princess notes out, it had like a game save bug that would make it unplayable after 12 hours or whatever that you've sunk into the game,
wow.
and now you can't. Something gets corrupted in your save file.
Are we talking about a Bethesda game? Hold on. Wait.
No, but that's the thing, is that Bethesda games would come out like that too sometimes. And I think it's just that this is a reckoning that the gaming industry has had coming for a while. That, like, this isn't okay. And just this happened to be the game that hit that.
Yeah,
And
it's the example.
Yeah, there's been so many
They're going to
meta
make an
examples.
example out of it, I think,
Yeah,
honestly.
it's not that it's been significantly worse than other games that release in an unfinished state, but a lot of games release in an unfinished state.
It's that Eric Andre meme. What do you mean you're delaying the game? I want the game.
Your safety's on.
So yeah, why did you make me do this?
Yeah.
Dave,
Man.
your safety is on, dude.
But I turned the safety off. There's no safe in here, and you know what? Why would you make me do that?
You told me to be so careful with that gun.
Yeah, it's broken, and I didn't realize that people had broken it in between now and the last time I fired it. So there we go with that. So
yeah, well, honestly, that's something that so Sean, my co-partner in this whole kind of Varia thing, that we talk about a lot is that we grew up on N64, Super Nintendo games when we were younger, right? And when you shipped a game, like, that was it. There was no connect to the internet. There was no DLC. There was nothing. Like, it was just, you got the game. It was fully fleshed out. They built in secret things and hidden rooms and whatnot, knowing that we were going to play it for 6, 8, 10 months and not get anything else in between. Like, but people shipped games that were completely finished, and now that you have to connect literally your refrigerator to the internet, it's like become kind of like okay that you can get a game at 80% with the idea that, like, oh, we're going to patch in the rest of it later, or we're going to have it as a DLC, or if we run into problems, like, we'll hotfix it, blah blah blah. And, like, while that technology is great, because if we do have a problem, it can get fixed, and it's a lot easier than having like a mass recall, something like that.
Yeah.
Right. At the same time, I think it's used too often as a crutch, and shouldn't be. Like, games should ship with the intent that, like, this is the product.
And it
I
should
don't
be
want
fully
to have
playable
to change
out the
it
box,
or hotfix it, right? And kind of take some ownership of that. So,
Yeah.
It's basically what happened is that what we were sold was an early access version of the game. And I've played games in early access before. I still enjoy playing Hard Space Shipbreaker, which is great, but has some
I'm
really
playing
bad...
Baldur's Gate 3 right now. That's in early access.
Yeah,
right? And it's very
Phasmophobia.
clear. I bought into it knowing
And
it was
there's
in early access.
game-breaking
Like,
bugs, but you know that it's in early access. It's not completed yet, so I'm fine
Right.
with that. But with a game like this, is that like it is in its early access state, despite them saying that it's finished. HRH Pistol Princess, I don't want to ignore you in chat. She's saying that she has run into some of those bugs, but she feels that the social media aspect has been blown out of proportion. And I have seen that a few times too.
yeah.
But like, if your game save gets bigger than 8 megabytes, it won't play anymore. That's something that should have been found. And let me read this. It's just like maybe let the devs finish the game without crunching them, and then getting mad that the product isn't polished and fully functional. And I agree. But that's something where scope comes into play. How big should the game be? And if they were aiming for this scope, it might have been released in 2022.
Right.
And
The other thing too, though, is like, why did they show it to us that early? Like, that's the other thing. You know, like, I get it if they ran into a delay or a couple delays, like, that's totally fine. But, like,
sometimes
it's been
games
how many
just
years?
get
Like, I think it was
totally-
7 years ago since the first trailer came out. Like, that's
Yeah.
kind of crazy, you know? Like, I mean, if I showed you if I came on this podcast and I was like, hey, I'm working on this game, it's called Varia, it's going to come out in 7 years, you'd be like, what? Why are you here?
yeah.
Like,
Well,
why are
it's-
you talking
Well,
about this
it's
right now?
also like sometimes it's bad direction where they build this thing and then say that doesn't fit our vision, let's not use that. That's man hours that could have been put towards finishing the product that we ended up getting.
Yeah.
So, yeah, like ultimately, I'm okay with games being released as early access. I'm not okay with full release, it's gone gold games releasing in an early access state.
Yeah.
And I am glad that there was a game that had so much hype behind it that whether the bugs are minor or major, it is still enough where the game industry has to reckon with this. And I hope that something gets done about this structurally going forward.
Yeah, I'm also an old man now, and I'm a fan of games that like they create one or two systems. And when I say a
Yep.
system, like I mean like a mechanical system within the game.
Yep.
And they just explore that to its fullest, and that's the whole game.
Yeah. It's
Like,
also like
I don't need these like sprawling open worlds where like my health is one system and my leveling is like 30 different systems that all map and
Yeah.
integrate and do all this crazy. Like, I don't need that. You know, I kind of miss the days where it was like, here's Zelda, and you know, we have a puzzle solving system and a combat system, and like, that's it.
I also think with Cyberpunk is that it should have released on just PC and then gotten a console port to Xbox Series X and PS5 next year, and it shouldn't have come out at all on Xbox One and PS4. Because that's where most of the issues are. When we're talking about retailers taking refunds, we're talking about previous gen systems that it's on. So I think if Cyberpunk had come out on PC first and then got ports later on, it wouldn't have
'cause I
gotten
think
the
it's fine on
massive...
PC, right? Like, people are
Yeah,
having
it's basically
they're
fine
having
on
a fun time.
PC. It's got some
Yeah.
amusing bugs, but it's basically fine on PC. But they wouldn't have gotten that massive infusion of cash right when it came out. But it would have been a better experience in the long run. So, anyway, I meant for that to be like a 2-second aside, but
I mean, we have fun here. So CD
We
Projekt
do.
Red, I am proud that you are putting forward some sort of save face effort to fix this, unlike Rockstar with all of the Batman games and so many others that were just broken and they kind of went, they'll get fixed.
I think that was
eventually.
Rocksteady for the Batman games. But yeah, Rockstar hasn't done anything since GTA 5. No, I'm kidding. They've done Red Dead Redemption. Okay,
They
Varia.
use the same trees, though. I saw that today.
They absolutely are. So
I thought that was hilarious because, like, as someone who's worked on and made a game, like, I would totally do not find them at fault for that whatsoever. Like, if I had assets sitting around that I could repurpose, like,
Yeah. Oh,
I
yeah.
would, especially something like a tree. Like I would put that there, and I'd be like, no one is ever going to notice this, and if they do, then I'll just release some post about like continuity and how like, oh, that's the same tree, just 100 years later or something.
All right. So, Dave, is there anything else before we move on to our headliner tonight?
I mean, we're already here.
Yeah. Let's do it. So, Varia. Give us the elevator pitch for what Varia is, and then I guess we can kind of
Sure.
go into talking about how it plays, some of the background, etc. from there. And definitely, those of you in chat, please ask questions. We'll try to get them answered now. And after Nerd Glasses today, the Citadel is afterward, and I will be playing Anthony in Varia, and he's going to wipe the floor with me. But it also gives us more chance to get through questions that we didn't get the chance to get to tonight. So, by all means, ask away. So, what do we got? What is this game I'm holding in my hand?
So Varia is a card and dice based strategy game where it pits two players against each other in one-on-one combat. The sales structure for the game is that it's an expandable card game. So right now there's a base set with classes, and we intend to continue to grow the pool of cards via more classes and other released products. We do not intend to ever sell the game as a TCG where there's randomized booster packs and a lottery system essentially that you have to gain all the cards.
Thank you.
Yeah, that's awesome. Like when Dave was telling me about it, the fact that I could grab Shadow Assassin, and this is an entirely playable deck in this box.
Yes.
Yeah.
So that's the other thing that we are very conscious of, that we're stubborn. We try very hard to make the industry better and also different, and we really want to innovate and do things that people haven't really seen before. And something that I always wanted as a card game player was a format that was readily accessible to anyone. And I think one of the biggest turnoffs for people when they want to get into a card game is the price point. And so from day one, we wanted to make sure that the barrier to entry as far as wallet was as low as humanly possible. So we have a format that we call out of the box. Every single one of our class decks is balanced against each other so that they create relatively fair matchups. And what we intend to do is essentially have a format similar to a League of Legends or a Heroes of the Storm, that sort of thing, where you just grab a deck and go. That's it. You don't have to do any deck building. You don't have to buy anything more than that one single box. You have exactly what you need in order to compete at the highest level in one of our formats. Obviously, there is a deck building component. There is a constructed format where you can take all those decks apart and build something that's more unique to you. That's a little bit more expensive, obviously, because you would have to buy multiple decks in order to do that. But we wanted to make sure that there was an option available to players, and our goal was to be under $20, right?
Yeah,
So
like,
a single class deck right now is, I think we're running a sale, so I think, what are you guys putting them for in your store?
The Divine Paladin, Death Pirate, Mystic Monk, Shadow Assassin, Cosmic Mage, Volcanic Warrior, and the Sixth Blade can all be purchased for $9.99.
Beautiful.
And then
So $10, right? I mean, that's,
yeah,
if you want to be competitive in Varia right now, $10.
yeah. Yeah.
like
Compare that to Magic the Gathering, where you get a starter set that is 15,
You
20?
can't buy land for $10.
Yep.
Yeah.
You can buy a starter deck that comes with 2 extra bundled packs at Target or your local TCG retailers for about $14.99.
Yeah.
But you then need to be competitive at gaming terms and things like that. You have to customize that deck.
Yeah. You get the basic cards that, yes, you can play with that deck, but they're basic cards, and you got to get booster decks for like $4, $8.
you're gonna
$15.
you're gonna sit across the table from somebody with a $600 standard deck, and they're gonna wipe the floor with you, not because they're better at the game, but because they have a deeper pocket.
Yeah.
And so that's really what we wanted to avoid. We wanted to have at least one format where money was not a principal factor in winning games.
Yep.
Like you pay $10, you have the tools you need, and then at that point, it's just skill. It's you might get beat, right, by somebody better than you, but the only thing preventing you from winning is you just keep playing and get better. You can keep bringing the same deck over and over and over. Like, that's fine.
Yeah.
We encourage it, right? Like, we don't want to make our money off of gambling. Like, that's not our goal as a company. We want to make
Don't you
our
mean
money
surprise
off of a
mechanics?
game that people enjoy. Like, that's what we want to do.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. And I just think it's cool that I got the recommended starting matchup of Volcanic Warrior and Shadow Assassin, and I played half a game, and then just the person that I played against, she's not a CCG person, a TCG person, and it wasn't really holding her. That's fine. I got a bit of a sense of it. You're going to play against someone who has played half a game on the Citadel. But like, just what I had played was interesting enough, and I looked at the different characters that were themed, and I said, just today, hey, give me Six Blade too. Like, let me, because this is cool. And I've dropped $30 on it, and I have 3 totally playable decks. I could mix and match if I want to, or I can keep them as their themes.
Right.
And play
and
with.
We're honestly right now we're working on our Kickstarter. Was successful back in October, so
it was
in the process of finalizing an additional 7 decks that we're going to release. So the amount of classes available will essentially double to 15. So
and like, you don't have to get all of them. It can be like, again, you say League of Legends, we're like, oh yeah, I main Six Blade.
Right, exactly. I barely play anything other than Shadow Assassin. Like, that's my bread and butter right now.
Dave, what is strongest against Shadow Assassin, Dave? I need to know this.
Well, here's the thing. When you're playing against my particular Shadow Assassin, as you saw when I faced Geek for All, anything, because I'm really good. I was like, every single time I was like, man, I'm going to use the bow. I'm going to be distant. It's going to be fine. And every single time, Joe and Amy were like, we just close range and like, so I wasn't able.
It's funny, the Shadow Assassin's kind of strategy is disengage, slink away, and kind of attack at the most opportune time for you. You really kind of control the pacing of the fight against most other classes, except in that case the Volcanic Warrior. The Volcanic Warrior is the king of, like, no, you're playing by my rules, and my rules are I'm going to be in your face the entire time, and I'm swinging. So that's the one matchup where, as the assassin, you have to kind of change your approach to how you're going to come at that, and that's another aspect of out of the box that at first we didn't really think about, but actually is really kind of cool. Is that the more you play those matchups, the more you start to learn what's in the deck that you're facing, what to expect. You can kind of come to the table, see like, oh, you're a Volcanic Warrior, and right away, like, approach that fight differently. Again, I'm going to use League of Legends a lot as an example, but if you main a character, you start to learn, oh, when I see a certain character against me in lane, this is the strategy I'm going to employ, because it puts me in the best kind of footing against them, even if statistically I'm at a disadvantage, right? Like, you can use that knowledge of the disadvantage as an advantage and do some weird stuff or try to catch them off guard. Like, it becomes a lot more about strategy and a lot less about, how much money I've spent, which is really exciting for us.
How do you, like, you've got 7 or is it 8 now with
8 decks now,
8 decks
including
right
the
now
Dragon
with Dragon Knight. 8. You've got 8 decks right now and another 7 on the way. How do you make sure they're all balanced against each other when they all have different play styles?
So I am very fortunate in that my business partner and co-designer of this game is one of the smartest people I've ever met in terms of figuring out how to break a game as quickly as possible. I used to make fun of him about this when we were, like, way back. This is like oh my God, over 10 years ago
Yeah.
when we were in college, right?
Yeah.
Because that's where we met. We would pick up a game on a weekend to just play together, and within like 15 minutes, he had figured out like, okay, this is the optimal play, and blah blah blah, and like he just wiped the floor with me every time, and I would be so distracted by like, wow, the narrative is so cool, and the art, and like, blah blah blah, I really feel like a warrior, you know, and like he has that kind of like perfect mindset to cover all of those gaps that I have. And so basically our teamwork is great because I'll come up with the kind of like narrative concept of like, oh, this explosive warrior who flies at you and does these, overhead chops and decapitate and, this like story. And I'll give him those pieces, and then he'll be like, like this is busted. This and this together is an infinite thing. Like can't have this, blah, blah. And he really fine tunes all of them to really play well against one another. So I have to, honestly, I have to give all the credit to Sean on that one. Like, he's phenomenal at developing these decks and making sure that they really sing against each other and that they still maintain that narrative, right? Like, yeah, they're balanced, but they're balanced in a way where the warrior's doing warrior things, the assassin is doing assassin things, like, so it works. My short answer is we play Varia. This is what I like to say. I stole this from, honestly, Mark Rosewater says this a lot about Magic. He says we play a lot of bad Magic so that you guys get to play good Magic. And so that's what we do. We play a lot of really bad Varia. Like, it's not fun. We hate it. We yell at each other. Yeah. But we do that in an effort to make sure that you guys play the fun version.
Nice.
Right.
So I have to ask, because this stream and occurrence and my getting to know and meet you wouldn't have happened without our friends at YouTube at Geek for All. Where to even start? So you found them and you sent them some product because you know that on Geek for All they open up product and they talk about it.
Right.
Did you, when you first saw like us playing on Tabletopia, things like that, is that like a proud moment where, a parent watches their child wander away? Or is it a moment where you watch and you go, oh God, they're doing it wrong. Oh no. Oh God. That's not how you play that card.
No, honestly, for me, it's, our motto is story-driven, player-focused. Like, that's our kind of Guildhouse Games motto. And really, what we want to do is we love games. We want to bring people together through games to just share an experience and have fun. And when you were playing against Joe and Amy, like, both of you were laughing and having a good time.
Oh my God,
so, like,
yes.
Regardless of whether it was right, wrong, like, we don't care. What we cared about was that you guys looked like you were having fun, and that made me so proud. It's kind of like, if you go to like a parent-teacher conference, you don't really care, like, does your kid get an A? Is he athletic? Is she athletic? Like, you just want to know, like, are they a good person? Like, that's what matters, And so, like, all I want to know is, like, is our game fun? Are you guys having fun? That's always our kind of principal thing that we care about. So you can screw it up all you want. You can be terrible at it, be good at it.
That's not how engagement stacks. Oh my God.
I have to say, I want to because ticket to entry for me for Varia was, I love watching Geek for All, and I really liked watching the opening. I got really excited about the cards, and then when they approached me to play on Tabletopia, which, by the way, you folks watching out there right now can be playing Varia for free, so that you can get in the idea of, maybe right now during COVID the cards aren't exactly as appealing, but you can learn how to start playing so that when events start happening at your local Insane Games, when gaming starts opening at tournaments, at local card shops, things like that, you can know how to play right away. I will say, as somebody that, as you've seen with Boder and my interactions, I do have a little bit of a learning disability, and my reading is not exactly as strong as other people. This was a game that I picked up and was playing with confidence and enjoying with gusto with less than 2 hours. I was enjoying the hell out of my experience. And I was really enjoying the fact that this is a game where, because it is, as it says on the things, it's a first-person trading card game.
Yeah.
It's not I'm going to make a turn that's 15 different events and you're going to sit there and wait while I finish doing all this. It's Boater plays cards. I'm playing cards in response to that. Boater plays cards in response to my responses. I get to resolve that. And then you're off to the races for one turn.
Yep.
All of that
Right.
stacks.
Yeah, and
it's awesome.
Again, it's first person, so all the cards that you're playing are like attacks and weapons. It's not like, all right, I'm going to drop down 15 goblin minions. And,
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
That was the one thing we didn't want to do. So like,
Unqualified
we've been working on this
confidence.
game for a while, since we met in college, right? But we kind of had two principal goals. One was we didn't want to create. We refer to Magic and those other kind of games that are similar as RTSs. Because you're a general and you have a bunch of resources that you employ and minions that you control, and you kind of send out your armies and who's attacking and whatnot, right? So we basically looked at that and we were like, okay, what do we want to make? We don't want to make an RTS, right? Him and I, we're video gamers, right? So that's how we talk.
Yeah, that's the
So
language.
we're like,
used, yeah.
what's a genre that we don't think is represented correctly through trading cards? And so, the idea of what about like an FPS or like a first person kind of like, Oblivion, or at the time an Elder Scrolls experience. Like, we don't really have that. So what would that look like? How would that play? And so that was kind of the inspiration for Varia as we know it. But at the same time, the other thing that we really cared about was, while you're taking your turn, like, what am I doing? Like, what's the narrative there? You're summoning gates to hell and demons are popping out, and you're cracking a whole bunch of eggs and re-summoning them and cracking them again and re-summoning them.
Yeah, and
every time
instead of just
like,
sitting
I get
here
in the head for one, but am I just standing there? Like,
Yeah.
what am I doing?
Yeah, like
You
in Magic, you're sitting there saying, well, I'm boned. Whereas in here, you're actively thinking of how you're
Right.
responding to that and trying to counter it and change how that plays out, which is really cool. I do want to relay this from chat before it scrolls off our screens too much. HRH Pistol Princess saying in response to your out of the box sales model that that's really not bad at all. Please don't become like Yu-Gi-Oh! I am so optimistic about this. I say this as someone who has spent $200 each on 2 separate Yu-Gi-Oh! Decks. So
yeah,
$10.
So I'll say this about Yu-Gi-Oh! As well. I loved it as a kid. I loved the cartoon or the anime. I loved the cards. Like the whole experience was really cool. I played it on PlayStation. I used to have it where you could like merge the cards and create thunder lizards or something. Was like the best thing you could do. The one thing that I don't like about Yu-Gi-Oh! Now is that every single card is a novel. And so one thing that we also really try to do with our cards, and this is also because of how the game plays, you can kind of fuse cards together and create custom attacks. Like, you can create a physical dagger and a fire spell and make a flaming dagger that you throw at your opponent, right? Because of that, we try to keep the complexity of an individual card very light, so that when you are making those combinations, it's almost intuitive as to kind of what they're doing and how they will play. And you don't have to spend a lot of time just reading and rereading these walls of text. So like, one of our marquee cards in the game is Decapitate, right? It's this huge bombastic warrior card that you can knock your opponent's head off, right? But it has a single rule on it. It's just one line of text, that's it. It's maybe four rows of type, right?
Yeah.
But or like the assassin's kind of like ultimate ability is called Hematoxin, and all it does is just says on hit apply 1 Hematoxin. Like, that's it. We try to keep it simple and straightforward enough that that you don't get bogged down in stuff that's going to take you out of the game and out of the experience.
More Like Rigor Mortis asked a question that actually I kind of wanted to segue to earlier, but we got off on tangents like we do here. And she says, Is this a 1v1 game? Could 3 or 4 people play? 1v1v1,
That's a great
2v2,
question.
Battle Royale. On the back, it does say players 2+. So
Yes.
how?
So
tell us
it
about
is.
that.
It is. I'll say this: the out-of-the-box decks are designed and balanced to be played 1v1 because that's the format that we're trying to give birth to first, right? We want to make sure that that is strong so that people have the ability to get into the game at that price point. Like that was our kind of principal goal out of the gate. That said, as we designed the rules, we always had multiplayer in mind because multiplayer is something that we love. We're casual multiplayer Magic fans.
Yep.
And so we are actively, I'll say this without giving too much away, we are actively working on official multiplayer rules that you should expect within a year, I'll say,
Awesome.
right? To give myself enough space. But it is something that we're constantly thinking about.
That
It's
1
something
year
that we
becomes
are
7
definitely
years. Why would you
planning
talk
on
about that now?
And also PVE. PVE is another thing that
Oh,
we
yeah.
really enjoy, and that's on our kind of docket as well.
For those
You know,
not as
like-
versed in the lingo, PVE basically means single player.
Right. Well, or group versus the
Oh, okay, yes, or
system,
co-op,
right?
yeah, co-op gameplay, yeah.
So it's one of those things like when we made the game, we set out to make a system. That's really what we tried to design. We designed a combat system that you use cards and dice to play a game. And we tried to keep things broad enough and keep things intuitive enough that when we want to, we can expand into these different areas where we can go multiplayer, we can do player versus the environment. Like my other way of kind of describing this game is like in D&D, right? Let's say that one of you is a rogue and one of you is a warrior. Normally you're in a party, normally you're out adventuring. But what if in between sessions, the two of you just got in a fight? What would happen? It would just be warrior versus rogue, right? You would use those same rules, those same mechanics, but you would just have a 1v1 fight. And so Varia is that. Like, it's a 1v1 fight between two classes. But there's nothing stopping us from simply just, instead of fighting each other, turning and fighting the environment, right? And so our hope is to, and our plan is to expand the game in such a way that you have those options and you can do those things, right? And my kind of pie in the sky dream, so to speak, would be to be able to facilitate an entire campaign where, let's say, I'm the dungeon master and both of you are my players, and you each come to the table with a level 1 deck, and we play through a campaign, and every time you level up, I say, here, pick 3 cards.
God.
Oh my
how do you
god,
win
that sounds
pro?
so cool.
You know what I mean? And so it's set up. There are things in the game now and like layers in the game that don't mean anything really right now, but they're there on purpose so that we can use them later, if that makes sense. So
Cool.
so we
Yes.
we did a lot of extra work to kind of set ourselves up for, these avenues of expansion, with kind of like the hope of people wanting to play and us then having the funding to do these things.
Yeah.
Right?
And
So,
that's cool. Like, that's a cool, like, forward-looking, like, hey, this is a mechanic that will help us later on with where we're planning to go on our roadmap. We can use
Right.
it here, but it's not going to be utilized to the fullest until we get there. But instead of trying to introduce more mechanics with later expansions, like when, Magic has a new expansion and they introduce new mechanics, whatever.
Or-
Well, how do I apply this to the
Yeah.
old stuff? No, your old stuff just isn't as good as the new stuff now.
Yeah, it's that the problem that some trading card games out there do have right now, and especially not to take shots at Yu-Gi-Oh, but every new set of Yu-Gi-Oh is like a season of Dragon Ball Z. There is just bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger, and so the old cards can't keep up with the new cards. But when you're buying a Varia deck, this Divine Paladin will be able to fight, let's just say, the newest expansion, Dragon Knight, just fine. And I really like that you left little. I like that you left room in the armor for more weapons to be added, for more mechanics to be changed, and things like that, so people could take a character that they do identify with or latch onto or have made their own, and they're not getting told 2-3 years from now when, I'll just say it, more expansions, more fun comes for them, and more successes for Varia. And they're not just feeling left out because their $10 purchase 7 years ago is now obsolete. Like, it's awesome that you're doing that.
Yeah.
Like,
I'll give you another example. So, like, our constructed format, right? We try to simplify it we refer it to like 30-30-30 level 10. That's what we call it, which is like a mouthful and makes no sense, right? But really what it means is that your build can have 30 health, 30 cards in your deck, and 30 gold worth of items. Right?
Yeah, okay.
And then the cards that are in your deck can have a max attribute level of 10. So for example, if you have Decapitate in your deck, that's a level 7 aggression card, right? If that means that your deck, because Decapitate is in it, is minimum level 7 aggression.
Yeah.
Okay.
So if you then took a card from the Divine Paladin that, let's say, had a Faith level of 3 requirement, if you put that in your deck is now capped at level 10, 7 of which is aggression, 3 of which is Faith. And so you can include any cards that have a lower level in there, but that's your cap, right? That's kind of how we facilitate deck building so that you don't just cram all the best possible cards into your deck, right?
So you're saying
it's
like building
not the perfect way to do it, but we did it that way because, to go back to what I was talking about before, what it does is it gives the cards levels 1 through 7, so that if and when we do PvE, I can tell you, make a level 1 deck. And you'll say, well, what's level 1? And I'll say, level 1 is 10 health, 10 gold, 10 cards in your deck, and you can only have a max level of 1. And that'll make sense to you because you're already used to doing level 10 constructed. And then it's easy to extrapolate and think like, oh, well, what if I made like an epic level 20 deck with like 60 health and 60 gold worth of items? That would just be bananas, right? But if you wanted to have that format, like, you could. It's there. You can go infinite if you want to. And to be totally honest, like, we kind of stole it from Warhammer, right? like Warhammer uses a point system. In that same way. It's like, how big do you want our army to be? Let's do 1,000-point armies. Cool. We're on an equal footing at that point. And then it's just a matter of what you pick and choose. So we tried to give players a similar framework in that in the future, once you understand the game better and the systems better, you and your friend can sit down and say like, hey, let's play some Varia this weekend. We're going to do level 20 decks, 60 gold limit, X health, whatever, and it'll be a language that people understand and will be able to, build around, really.
So I did want to ask you, for those of you who are watching who don't necessarily play trading card games, just know that right after this program, the Citadel, we're going to be going in depth and playing Varia, so you'll get to see it live and in action, and these terms that we are using will get connected. But I did want to ask, so each of these cards, by the way, and I'll approach the camera for folks at home. I did drop a couple links, but so each of these cards are themselves, or each deck is a character. They have, lore associated. They have this beautiful art. They even have its own, to use a Magic the Gathering term, but flavor text, and things like that. So, not to broad stroke you, but where do you get these people? How do you go from an idea to, hey, here's guided strike, art, text, things like that? What's the process to that?
So, it's a good question. So I got my start in this industry. I wrote names and flavor text for Magic.
Okay.
That was kind of where I started.
That's awesome.
Nice.
I've always been a kind of student of game design, and Sean was of similar mind. Like, it's just something that we were always really interested in and really passionate about. So he and I would have a lot of conversations about it, to the point where we felt confident enough in our ability to make and develop and balance a game. I also am a huge fan of Hearthstone.
Okay.
And the one thing that I really like about Hearthstone is is that they challenge themselves to make cards as readable as possible. They want you to be able to read a card and immediately understand what it does.
Yeah.
Like, not read it again, not go back and revisit it later. They want you to read it once and know that's what that card does.
Yeah.
And so we kind of took our passion for game design, my familiarity with the industry at large, and doing flavor text. And I'm fortunate enough to have met some other friends who write flavor text, and so then I hired them to work with us, and we took that and kind of things in the industry that we really like and think people are doing right, and tried to kind of marry them all together. In terms of the art, this was my first foray into art direction. It was a total shot in the dark. Like, I basically just went on ArtStation and scrolled for hours and hours and hours just looking for artists who I felt like did not have, basically what I looked for were people who I felt like had amazing ability but had no likes or followings or whatever, compared to some artists, they have like tens of thousands of people, right?
Yeah.
I basically just tried to find up and comers who I felt like would just be really excited to help make something new, that we haven't really seen before, or and I honestly don't know. Sometimes I look at the art on art cards and I'm surprised that we're able to do that. It blows me away. Like, the artists that we've been fortunate enough to work with are so incredibly talented. I'm constantly in awe of their ability. Like, it's one part of the game that I would love, once we have more ability to do so, to further promote and work with these artists to just really kind of help them grow with us, because
Absolutely.
their ability and their imagery is really what's helping us sell our game.
Yeah.
I'm fully aware of that, right? Because any game is, sure, if the system is great, it'll keep people, but the trick is getting someone to play that first time.
Yeah.
And the way you do that is with just incredible visuals. And so we're kind of honestly dependent on our artists right now to create amazing art, so that people are like, hey, what's that? I'm interested in that, teach me more. And then hopefully the mechanics retain them, right?
Yeah.
But what I don't want to do, and we don't plan on doing, is just forgetting about our artists. Once people come to our game just because they like the game and don't really care about the art anymore, right? That's not cool, in my opinion.
Yeah.
So that's my long-winded way of saying, honestly, I am just super thankful that we are able to find and work with these amazing people, and I hope they stick around, because as long as they're with us, we'll try to do as much for them as they're doing for us right now. At least we're incredibly grateful for that.
Hell yeah.
Yeah, I don't know how much longer you want to keep going. I know that I've got more questions that I'm happy talking about on the Citadel after this. I'm just going to say one thing here. So when we play on the Citadel, we're going to be playing on Tabletopia. We're going to be playing it digitally. But again, there are the physical decks that you can get, which include things like tokens and stack cards that are used. And can I say that how much it kind of hurt me a bit when I took the stack cards, which are meant to be then cut in half. And I get it. They're small cards that you set there to say, oh, you have a stack of fatigue, you have 3 stacks of enraged. And it worked great. But I'm like, you were making me cut a card in half.
So
is this an initiation?
That's really funny that you bring that up. So my partner, Sean, in this, right? He hates that. I pushed really hard for that for a number of reasons. one, and the most principal reason, purely a design choice, I wanted to make sure that it was really easy to glance to understand the difference between a card in play and a lingering effect. And what better way to do that than with a literal change in size?
Yeah,
right?
a small version of the same card that caused the effect. Yeah.
Right, exactly. And the way you can further remember this was generated by a card is that it's smaller, right? It came out of a card, so it's smaller.
Yeah.
The other main reason why I wanted to do that is because our initial kind of like sales pitch is, hey, you can buy into this game at $10-15.
Yeah.
It's not expensive, right?
Yeah.
And what better, and that's a hard thing to kind of like divorce trading card enthusiasts away from, because they're used to spending a lot of money and, you know, having these like $30 pet foils and whatever. And like, that's fine. Like, I'm not against that. I think that's cool. But I also really wanted to prove that, like, we're committed to this low entry point.
Yeah. And
what better way to do that than have you physically ruin the product? Because at the end of the, I mean, at the end of the day, it's like, if for some reason you wanted that card again but intact, it's going to cost you $10. Like, it's not. It's okay. It's okay to kind of let go and be willing to just cut it up.
Speaking of value for cards, I also, so on Tabletopia, obviously you can create dice and things like that you need. But for example, if I bring 2 Varia decks on a hike with me and I look at my backpack, I'm like, oh my god, I didn't bring any D6s, any D4s. You'll learn the mechanics and why those are structurally important, and
the game
why
uses
it makes
dice. Like we're talking like character classes in D&D or whatever, the game uses dice.
It
which
literally,
is awesome.
it literally makes sure that this guided strike that I would use against Boder this game, 2 games from later, is either more potent, less potent, or just as equally potent. And it's all about if the dice land in my favor. However, I do appreciate that every single one of the decks we have opened comes with this little placard with very nice information about Guild House games, but on the other side is
we're cutting up your promo when we make the dice.
That's right.
It gives me a die that if I don't have a local gaming shop to give me D4s, or my cat happens to abscond with my last D6, right there. Like
yeah, we really wanted to have this idea of everything that you need is in that one box.
Yeah.
We ran into a last-minute manufacturing snafu that caused us to not be able to include actual dice, so that was kind of our second choice. Was to do that kind of cardstock option. So, because in all reality, like unless you cut them up and put them in a hat and like draw them out as kind of like chits, I think is the right term. D&D used to use those a long time ago.
Yes, they did.
But because that die isn't going to be fair.
It's not going to be a fair die.
You can manipulate it.
I love the idea of it. Like, it sets a tone.
Yeah, it's it's whimsical in that it is a card game and we use dice, so why not like a cardstock based dice system? But I will say that in our future products, we have found a way to include dice, and that is what we're doing. So
awesome. I'm sorry, my eyes lit up.
That when you pick up a deck, it'll come with a set of dice.
Yeah,
that's kind of what we're aiming for.
My eyes lit up because I'm a dice goblin. Like, I have a tray that's about like this big in my car right now because I didn't know going into today if you'd be here remotely or like in person. So I'm like, I'm gonna bring my dice to be sure. So it's just like, I have a lot of dice, and the potential for me to get more dice excites me.
Yeah, if you need dice, I have an ungodly large amount of D6s if we ever need them. Here on set.
We get a lot of questions about the dice in general because people will say, like, aren't trading card games random enough? Why do you need an additional RNG factor? And what's really fascinating about the way that Varia plays is that because there's no ramp, there's no like turn 1 I have 1 energy, and by the time I get to turn 10 I have 6 to 10 energy or whatever.
Yeah.
Like because that honestly from a narrative perspective like doesn't make any sense, right? If you and I were 2 boxers in a ring, we're not going to slowly ramp up to our full potential, we're just going to come out of the gate and kick each other's teeth in.
Yeah,
Right?
if anything,
So-
you're going to slow down as you get the crap kicked out of you.
Varia doesn't have a ramp structure to it, so you're like at 11 from turn 1 to turn 10.
Yeah.
So you rip through your deck really quickly. You end up playing all of your cards. There's no concept of mana screw, like that doesn't exist. You can always play everything. It's very fast paced, but the result, the net kind of loss from that is that games start to become super repetitive in terms of the cards that are played. And so by integrating a dice-based numerical system, what it does is it makes sure that you get that replayability and you get that variance that lets you play 30, 50, 70, 90 games with the same deck, and it never feels like the same game over and over again.
Nice.
I can testify to exactly what you're saying. This is now more than a month ago, but when we first played on Tabletopia, me, Geek for All, and myself were playing before the stream to make sure we got everything right, and we didn't realize that you have to click on the deck to shuffle it. So every time we would restart the game, we were drawing the exact same hands, and yet they won the first game, I won the second game, they killed me the third game, and I won the fourth one handily, and we got the exact same cards. We didn't realize it because I was just really excited to get to shoot that bow, but
Right.
Yeah.
And honestly, like I'm sure there's, and this would have to be something that the community just kind of invented on their own or whatever, but I'm sure that there's room for a format where like you can preset your deck.
Mm-hmm.
Like I do not think that would be degenerative because
Because of the randomness.
honestly, like the dice will create enough of a variance that, to your point, like that might be okay.
Yeah.
You know, like we didn't design for that, but there's possible that would work just fine. You know.
Yeah, I've seen some games that use like a card draw where we need to randomize a member, so draw a card and what's the power on that one? 0, 2, 2, whatever. But it's like you would then need to make sure that everything within the deck is balanced for that. It's like no, just D6. There you go. And plus because it's got that kind of D&D class feel, by adding dice, it just kind of cements that atmosphere a little more, and I really like it.
It's also honestly it's fun.
Yeah.
It's like so if you ever go to a casino,
The math rocks go click clack.
A lot of people say that like Magic is akin to like blackjack or poker, right? And so what we wanted to be was craps, because when you go to a casino, the table of people who are having the most fun are the people at the craps table.
Yep.
So
that's like kind of like our analog is like if Magic's poker, Varia is craps. So if you really like craps, you're gonna love Varia.
I love it.
Thank you so much for joining us here on the Nerd Glasses, Anthony. We really appreciate you taking your time out, and we want nothing but success for Varia. It is now in stock here at Insane Games in the Wilton Mall in Saratoga Springs right now. Those decks are flying off the shelves. Boater's already bought 3. I've bought a couple, and I know I Love Alec has gone home with a couple of them. You can't buy Boaters, but you can buy while they are still in stock through us, or you can go on the link I'm going to drop here in chat. It's Control V, not FNV. But guildhousegamesllc.com, and it has links to some very good stories, by the way, one of which was written by our guest host here.
Yeah, there's lore. I kind of wanted to ask that, but I ran out of time.
You can ask me while we're playing if you
yeah,
want.
Yeah, exactly.
So, thank you again for being here with us. This was awesome.
Absolutely. No, I'm very happy to do it. Yeah, thank you for having me on. And if you do go to our site, if you use the code GiveAGift20, you can get 30% off. So.
Ooh.
Nice. So, everyone watching, what's going to happen is that the Nerd Glasses podcast will go offline. It's going to take us 5 minutes tops to rearrange things and get ready for the Citadel. Go grab some popcorn, use the bathroom, get a drink, come on back because I will be playing Varia with Ant, and it's going to be a really fun time. I'm probably going to get my butt kicked, but who knows? There's randomness in the game, and I expect at least once tonight he's going to go, oh, that's very perceptive play for a new player. So stay tuned,
Yes.
watch that, and feel free to stick around and ask questions because we're gonna keep talking about the game. And we'll figure out whether it's gonna be Skype or Discord, whatever. We'll get that settled in the about 15 minutes in between. So 5 minutes we'll be offline, 10-minute countdown, and I'll see you folks on the Citadel. In the meantime, this has been the Nerd Glasses Podcast. I've been Boater.
I've been Dave Mann.
Thank you so much for watching, and have a great night.
Yep.
Do you want to do a podcast? We make a darn good team.